Some of the U.S.'s top basketball stars are coming under scrutiny for their links to Xinjiang cotton. Here are the details. Republicans within Congress say NBA players should break their endorsement deals with Chinese sportswear firms Anta and Li-Ning, whose cotton supply chains are implicated in the use of forced labor in China's Xinjiang province, according to Politico. Alongside public statements and activity on the bipartisan Congressional-Executive Commission on China, 3 representatives are pressuring the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control to list the 2 companies on its specially designated nationals list, which would prohibit U.S. citizens from doing business with them. High-profile players currently signed up with either Anta or Li-Ning include Jimmy Butler, McCollum and Klay Thompson. Dwayne Wade, who is now retired, signed a lifetime deal with Li-Ning in 2018. According to the New York Times, the increased scrutiny comes after stock prices in Anta and Li-Ning rose in the aftermath of them reaffirming their commitment to Xinjiang cotton. Rivals Nike and Adidas sent out statements denouncing forced labor in the region, which saw them boycotted by some in China. In January, the U.S. banned imports of products made from Xinjiang cotton, though Li-Ning and Anta have never sold large numbers of shoes there, and those products are still available to order online. China represents a hugely lucrative market for American sports stars to tap into, according to the New York Times, with Klay Thompson's shoe deal with Anta alone widely reported to be valued at up to $80 million. This puts those stars in a relatively difficult position, as for both humanitarian and geopolitical reasons, tensions between China and the U.S. grow. When Nike and Adidas released their relatively tepid statements against forced labor in Xinjiang, videos spread of Chinese citizens burning their shoes. Caught in the middle of feelings that strong, the likes of Klay Thompson were always likely to face extreme scrutiny at some point. Currently, that is coming from the U.S. side. But just 2 years ago, China dropped the NBA from state media channels after the Houston Rockets general manager expressed public support for pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong, and according to the director of the Public Opinion and Foreign Policy program at the Lowy Institute in Australia, cited by the New York Times, it's hard to imagine celebrities and brand ambassadors being able to walk this line between those negative views of China in their home countries and the increasingly clear demands in China to publicly demonstrate the use of products made in Xinjiang. In short, something or someone has probably got to give. Here's what you need to know about what's happening in Xinjiang right now. The massive scale of the detention center building within China's Xinjiang region may be even larger than previous estimates had suggested. Here's what you need to know. China has built the capacity to simultaneously imprison at least 1.01 million people in Xinjiang, according to BuzzFeed News analysis. This may suggest previous estimates of around 1 million Uyghur and other ethnic minority Muslims being detained over the last 5 years are too low. 347 facilities have been identified as being built since 2016, and as of April 2021, these facilities covered an area of more than 206 million square feet, or around 19.2 million square meters, enough to cover a third of Manhattan. Within the facilities, government documents from 2010 and 2013 indicate cells are designed to hold between 8 and 16 people, allowing between 5 and 7 square meters per person. Those specifications, combined with the total area allocated for detention centers, are how the estimated capacity of more than 1 million people was arrived at. However, previous accounts of overcrowding, plus the existence of 100 detention facilities built before 2016 and not included in the report, could indicate a still larger capacity. According to the BuzzFeed News report, the coordinated campaign to imprison Muslims in Xinjiang began in 2016, initially with schools, hospitals, and other public buildings repurposed to become detention centers. This process solidified into something more sophisticated in the following years as more and more purpose-built facilities were constructed, peaking between 2017 and 2019. As of April 2021, BuzzFeed News estimates this amount of detention space provides the capacity to imprison 1 in 25 of the population of Xinjiang, a relative detention capacity 7 times higher than that of the United States, the country with the highest official prison population in the world. The lives of detainees are full of oppressive practices, according to accounts by 3 men detained in 2017. Detainees must jump out of bed immediately following a wake-up call. They must sing patriotic songs before meals. They must spend up to 23 hours a day inside their cells, and when they walk in corridors, they must walk between sets of yellow lines. The detainees were given hardly any justification for their imprisonment, but they told BuzzFeed they spent about 1 hour a day studying Mandarin Chinese and Communist Party dogma, despite the fact all three already spoke fluent Mandarin. Alongside these and many other restrictive practices, BuzzFeed News also details widespread claims of forced labor within the centers. Former detainees told BuzzFeed they were never given a choice about working and were either paid nothing at all or very little. "I felt like I was in hell," one said. Within this relentless system of control, the smallest transgressions, such as speaking native languages, can result in violent punishment. One man detailed being forced to face a window and threatened before eventually being struck by an electric baton. These authoritarian methods of control extend beyond the borders of the centers into the rest of the Xinjiang region. Amid a system of mass surveillance, checkpoints checking ID cards of Uyghurs were introduced, according to one witness who spoke to BuzzFeed. In 2018, BuzzFeed reports that a mosque in one area had its dome and minarets removed. Around the same time, one ethnic Kazakh woman described how every house was searched. They were looking for things connected to the Islamic religion, like the Holy Quran, even things with Arabic writing. According to the BBC, China says this crackdown on Muslims in Xinjiang is necessary to prevent terrorism and drive Islamist extremism out of the area. It claims the centers it has built are an effective tool for re-educating detainees in a battle against terrorism, and it insists that Uyghur Muslim militants are leading a violent campaign for an independent state via bomb plots, sabotage, and other forms of civic unrest. However, there is little evidence of any kind of well-coordinated terrorist organization within the region, according to a comprehensive analysis contained within the book Global China, assessing China's growing role in the world. Xinjiang has been the subject of Central Asian geopolitical struggle for millennia, according to the authors of the chapter on oppression in the region. However, there have been just 4 clear-cut incidents of premeditated Uyghur political violence against civilians since the 1990s. A vehicular attack and self-immolation in Beijing in October of 2013, a mass knifing at the Kunming railway station in March of 2014, a knife and bomb attack at the Urumqi train station in April of 2014, and a vehicular and explosives attack on an Urumqi market in May of 2014. These attacks, it explains, do not fit China's broad characterization of the region as a hotbed of religious extremism. Broader dissatisfaction and unrest from within the Uyghur minority population has indeed sporadically erupted into violence against police and official targets, according to the analysis in that chapter. However, the crisis, which has been labeled ethnocide, cultural genocide, or even genocide, should be understood not as counterterrorism, but as the convergence and culmination of failed development policies, increasingly aggressive assimilationist policies, and the cycle of repression-resistance-repression that has played out in Xinjiang since the 1990s. The chapter explains. In short, the Chinese Communist Party has pushed for decades to force deeper cultural and economic assimilation in the region, where it has hoped for the country's Han majority ethnic group to take hold, and there has been some pushback against this, including political moves for greater independence, but there is no grand, religion-infused terrorist scheme to justify mass killings and imprisonment. As such, one expert on the situation, Professor Drew Gladney, summarized the situation as a political clampdown rather than an issue of religious terrorism. It is not a question of religious freedom, he told Time magazine. Clearly, there are many possibilities for religious expression that are not restricted in China, but when you cross the often nebulous and shifting boundaries of what the state considers political, then you are on dangerous ground. Compellingly, the religious counterterrorism justification may actually have been substantially bolstered in the early 2000s by the U.S., according to the aforementioned chapter in Global China, assessing China's growing role in the world. In an apparent bid to court PRC support for a United Nations resolution justifying the U.S. invasion of Iraq, it says, the United States in 2002 problematically designated the East Turkestan Islamic Movement an international terrorist organization, a move that we and other analysts think was incorrect based on the facts. The chapter explains that the East Turkestan Islamic Movement was a group that sought an independent Xinjiang, but effectively ceased to exist in 2003. After it was formalized by the US and UN, the false notion took root that East Turkestan Islamic Movement was a substantial, organized international group responsible for violent acts in Xinjiang.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.